This is Please Take Care, written by Abby MYG and read by Lala's Podfics. Summary. Lan Wangji had been behaving oddly. Lan Xichen decided to follow him to find out what was going on. He followed him till the Burial Mounds, where his brother was seated on the same bed as Wei Wuxian with a little kid between them. Author's notes. Hello. You could alternatively call this Lan Zhan decides to stay with Wei Ying and Yiling, featuring a side of angst and Ayuan, narrated by Lan Xichen. Enjoy! Lan Xichen was worried. It was not new for his younger brother to travel around, night hunting and helping ordinary people get rid of ghosts and similar creatures. However, when he returned a few days ago, he seemed happy. Lan Xichen could brag about being the only one that could read his brother's emotions, and Lan Wangji definitely was happy. He could see it in the way the corner of his mouth moved slightly upward while doing his work, his mind wandering to who knows where. Lan Xichen was happy that his brother looked happy, really, especially after everything that had happened. However, it was the thought of what, or more accurately, who, was making him smile that made him feel troubled. Wei Wuxian was in a complicated position, dangerous even. A lot of people wished to possess the Stygian tiger seal, greedy of obtaining such power. To his understanding, and because it was obvious, the Yumeng sect knew his exact location. Everyone else was only guided by rumors, and that included his brother. As much as he fought to hide it, it was plainly obvious that Lan Wangji liked Wei Wuxian as more than just a friend, to the point that he was afraid his uncle was also able to guess it. So when his brother returned from one of his trips with such humor, he knew he had found him. He didn't want to ask him too many questions, nor did he intend to scold him. His brother was calmer and with more energy now that he knew Wei Wuxian was doing well. Regardless of that, when he saw Lan Wangji acting strangely, gathering clothes and items when he thought no one was looking, as if he was planning to move, his worry started to grow. He had a slight idea of what was happening, but he didn't want to make any assumptions beforehand. He had to find out by himself. Lan Xichen didn't like this. He was breaking a couple of rules of his clan by doing this, but he'd have to break more if what he expected to find out was true. So he guessed that it didn't really matter at the end. He erased all the guilt from his mind and dedicated himself to not being discovered by Lan Wangji as he was following him. As expected, his brother met with Wei Wuxian near the Burial Mounds. Wei Wuxian's smile was as bright as always, as if nothing had happened. Lan Wangji also gave him a small smile. What caught his attention, though, was a little kid with his hand wrapped around Wei Wuxian's leg that immediately moved to do the same to Lan Xichen's brother. Apparently, he had met him before. Lan Wangji patted his head kindly. The three walked further into the Burial Mounds, and Lan Xichen retreated to the city. Following them during daylight was probably not very intelligent if he didn't want to be discovered. Anyhow, he had already ascertained his suspicions to a certain point. To be sure, however, he had to return to the place during the night and try to sneak in. If he was correct, his brother should be there during the night still. After having dinner, he waited until it was almost the time in which he usually went to bed to return to the location. He didn't have much trouble sneaking in. There were some people that he guessed were ex-members of the Wen sect still roaming around, but none of them seemed to notice his presence. Some of them were cleaning what looked like some sort of dining place. He walked to the most eye-catching place, the entrance of the cave. It was covered by many talismans, some of which he recognized and some of which he didn't, probably creations of Wei Wuxian himself. Will any of the talismans reveal that there was an intruder? But his brother was also there, although he wasn't considered an intruder by Wei Wuxian, probably. He sighed and walked inside the cave anyway. He would have time to worry later. As he walked further in, he could hear more and more clearly the sound of two voices talking, or maybe three. One he managed to recognize as his brother, and the other was Wei Wuxian's. But he didn't know whom the third voice belonged to. When he turned around a corner, he saw dim candlelight illuminating the place, casting shadows on the huge stone walls. Now he was able to hear the voices loud and clear, and if he peeked from behind the rocks, he could see 3 figures on top of what was supposed to be a bed, but appeared to be more a mess of sheets. Wei Wuxian was laying down on the bed, resting his head on his hand. Lan Wangji was seated next to him with a small butterfly toy in one of his hands, playing with the little boy in his lap. It was the same kid he had greeted earlier that day. Lan Xichen also noticed that his brother wasn't wearing his forehead ribbon. Instead, it was tied around Wei Wuxian's wrist. The scene made his heart warm. At least his brother's feelings were reciprocated. They looked happy. "Isn't it time for you to go to bed, Ayuan?" Wei Wuxian questioned, squeezing one of the little boy's cheeks. "Granny will worry," he added. "I want to sleep here," the kid protested, crossing his arms in front of his chest and pouting. "Ayuan," Wei Wuxian wanted to scold him, but Lan Wangji interrupted him. "Let him stay," he said. Wei Wuxian looked at him with surprise. "Are you sure?" He said slightly. "All right then," Wei Wuxian tickled the kid on his sides, making him giggle. "Don't move around too much," he warned in a serious voice. Ayuan nodded enthusiastically. Lan Xichen thought he was adorable. "Shall we go to sleep then?" Wei Wuxian asked in Lan Wangji's direction. He nodded in agreement. He probably was exhausted after the trip to Yiling. Lan Xichen was too, from following him. The 2 adults got under the mess of sheets, and Ayuan was quick to follow them, settling somewhere between being half on top of Wei Wuxian's body and half on the small space between him and Lan Wangji. "Why on top of me?" Wei Wuxian complained, but didn't move at all. Lan Xichen couldn't see them clearly from where he was, but he guessed that his brother was smiling. He made a movement with his hand, and the room submerged in darkness, except for a small paper that seemed to be shining. It's probably just the talisman to detect intruders," Wei Wuxian explained. "I'll have to get rid of them and make new ones since you're going to stay," he added. Lan Xichen didn't expect an explicit and vocal confirmation of his suspicions when he arrived here, but he had got it. He was right when he assumed his brother had decided to stand next to Wei Wuxian, turning his back on what the other sex considered to be right or wrong. "Are they made with resentment energy?" Lan Wangji inquired. Apparently Wei Wuxian nodded. "I can make regular ones tomorrow," he offered. "Those won't work as well as these ones," Wei Wuxian refused. Lan Xichen wanted to say that they actually didn't work as well as he thought, but he couldn't. "Don't make that face, Lan Zhan. I know you don't like me using demonic cultivation, but there's no other way," he said. "No other way?" Lan Wangji asked him. Lan Xichen also wanted to know, what did he mean? Wei Wuxian was silent for a good second, as if he was gathering the courage to talk about it. "Grab my wrist," he said when he finally opened his mouth. Lan Wangji complied. "Do you feel anything, apart from my pulse?" he asked. "Your spiritual energy levels are low," the other replied. "Right," Wei Wuxian nodded. "Lan Zhan, He sounded a bit awkward. Lan Xichen assumed that whatever he was going to say was not something easy to talk about. He shouldn't be listening to this. Lan Wangji was probably the only person Wei Wuxian trusted at the moment. He wouldn't want anyone else to hear this conversation, but he couldn't leave, not now. He wanted to know what his brother was getting himself into if he decided to stay. "I really didn't have another choice," he repeated himself. "When Wen Chao and the rest came to Lotus Pier, Madame Jiang sent Jiang Cheng and me away so we wouldn't get hurt. At some point I fell asleep and he returned without me. When I found him, he was almost dead, and..." He took a deep breath. "Wen Zhuliao had melted his golden core," he explained. He stayed silent after that. There was no need for more words, for both Jade twins had put 2 and 2 together. "Did you?" Lan Wangji didn't finish his sentence. Wei Wuxian nodded. "How?" "Wen Qing is an amazing doctor," he said. Lan Xichen was thunderstruck. He actually had no other choice. With his golden core gone, it'll take him years to even think about forming a new one, and if he wanted to protect the remnants of the Wen sect, he needed to be able to defend them and himself. As strong as he was, if he couldn't match other spiritual power, he was lost. Demonic cultivation was the fastest way and the only alternative he had left. He felt guilty. Even if he'd never participated in the conversations about Wei Wuxian's obscure methods with other cultivators, he still felt bad. Even if his choice wasn't right, it was the only one he had. "Did it hurt?" Lan Wangji asked, and Wei Wuxian didn't reply. Of course it did. "Lan Xichen?" he asked after a few seconds. "Lan Xichen, why are you crying? Don't cry." He moved around. It was too dark to see, but Lan Xichen guessed he was wiping his tears. "Does he know?" "Jiang Chang?" "No," Wei Wuxian admitted. "He would feel like he owes me something, so no, I didn't tell him." "Lan Xichen," he sounded surprised. "Why are you suddenly hugging me?" he asked. Lan Xichen really should leave. It was not right for him to be witnessing such an emotional moment that belonged to the two of them only. "I'm okay, Lan Xichen, really," he said, letting out a laugh that couldn't sound more fake. "Lan Xichen, hey, it's okay." Lan Xichen left the cave, feeling the urge to cry too. "Take care of him," he whispered to the air, not sure of whom his words were for. Author's endnotes. Thank you for reading till the end. Please tell me what you think in the comments. Reader's notes. I absolutely loved reading this fic and making a podfic of it. I love any fic where Lan Xichen goes and lives in the burial mound with them, and this one was particularly cute since we got to see it from Lan Xichen's perspective too. And I can't wait to make the next one into a podfic as well. Please go to archiveofourown.org/works/236-75896 to leave comments and kudos for the original author. Thank you for listening and have a great day.